Okay, it's technically online now. Is it working? Almost there. Oh yeah, class. I think it is. Someone's watching already. We're live. Yeah, we were just testing it. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for 7:05.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to stop it and restart? Or wait?
No, it's fine.
Let's wait. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going. It's not by yet, but the rig, it doesn't work.
So, Robert, the rules of order, gentlemen. So, the quorum, does that mean you have to have half the board members?
We have 1, 2, 3,
Okay. We don't have. There's no legit business. Okay.
You were here for 421?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, 7:05 by this clock. So I'm going to call it as the grace period has expired. Thanks everyone for coming and taking the time to engage in your community. My name is John A. I'm the Liberty Wells Community Council Secretary. Our chair, Sarah Adelman, is out of town, and our vice chair had obligation, so you get third tier tonight. Okay. So thanks for coming. Just we're going to note for the record that we don't have a quorum. I was just checking with our rules here. So, but we don't have any business, serious business that the board has to vote on. So that's fine. But we do have a handful of board members here. We are recording. Just FYI, we are recording, and all of our meetings are streamed live on Facebook, and they're recorded. So if you wanted to reference a previous meeting, you're always welcome to on our Facebook by going to videos. So there's tons of materials. Help yourself to materials on the back. Please sign in if someone wants to pass around the sign-up sheet. That would be awesome. We encourage everyone to sign in. Helps us keep track of how many people are showing up to our meetings. Before we dive into the meat of the agenda, I'm just going to flag to you back there. There's also some ground rules. We've been trying to review these more and more. Just kind of reminders about respect and the flow of the conversation, agreeing to disagree, trying to keep the conversation productive. And then my favorite, we should step up and step back. So if you're kind of hogging a lot of the airtime, maybe consider stepping back. If you've never spoken at a community council meeting, maybe consider speaking up. So going both directions. Yeah. Also we're going to try and keep some time. We have a full agenda, but we're going to try and keep some time at the end for some open agenda items. We already have one of those on the list. So we'll try and make sure we leave a little bit of time at the end. Okay, so now that we've got through some of the administrative things, we're just going to flag that the Liberty Park Farmers Market is under the Community Council's guidance in 501c3. It's all volunteer run, completely volunteered. Val leads it up from our Community Council. So if you ever want to volunteer, you can go to the Liberty Park Farmers Market website. There's a volunteer tab. You can click on there and sign up, or you're welcome to chat with Val after the meeting as well. So if you're interested, you appreciate having it there, maybe consider doing a couple hours. I'll be there this Friday, FYI. So after that, the farmers market, we're going to jump into public safety update, starting with the fire department, Station 8 with Brody.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. Like I kind of, it's gonna be fast.
Maybe there's more about the farmer's market.
No, just reminding people they can volunteer and it's there. They can go get tomatoes.
Well, I'm definitely going to just step up and then step back. We don't want to take too much of you guys' valuable time. But we do have some important messages from the fire department that we'd like to share with you. Again, my name was Brody Burr, and we're with Station 8, just over here by the ballpark. And we're grateful that you guys let us come in and take a few minutes and share some ideas with you. We have first a safety message we'd like to share with you. Obviously, it's summer, it's hot out. Just a reminder, this may sound like common sense to most of us, but make sure you're not leaving pets, children, disabled individuals in cars. Even if you think it's just going to be a few minutes to run into the store, it doesn't take long for a vehicle to get to very dangerous temperatures, and cracking a window is not enough. So just make sure that you're not doing that. And if you do happen to see that situation and you believe that a child or a pet or someone is in distress, don't hesitate to call 911. We would just ask that, if at all possible, that you please stay on scene until we or the police arrive and can take care of the situation. In addition to that, we're like just a few days from school starting. At least I know my kids go back on Monday, so which is yes, get my free time back. But with that aside, if any of you have children getting ready to go to school, we'd encourage you to talk to them about some safety issues. Certainly, that would include walking to school, being aware of traffic and strangers, and just those kind of obvious things. Be sure to talk to your kids how to walk around the school bus and using the sidewalks, and when they come to a crosswalk, to be sure that they have the right signal and that they're looking both ways. But also a reminder to you guys as drivers that you're aware of the kids, because they aren't going to remember all these things that we talk to them about or that we talk about here. So make sure you're being vigilant as well, and keeping your eyes open and driving safely in the morning when the sun's low and kids are out walking to school. As far as some new programs or continuing programs that the fire department's doing, we are starting a monthly station tour. It will rotate between the 13 available stations. We do have one station at the airport that you guys won't be able to visit, but we do have 13 stations that each month the public will be invited to come on this open house day and take a tour of the station, talk to crews, answer questions, check out the equipment, just kind of a fun time to bring the family in and let the kids see everything. In addition to that program, we have what's called the Youth Safety Treasure. And if you have young children, even old children, but I think it's geared for young children, feel free to go to our website, and that is for this program, www.slc.gov/fire/futures/. And if you can't find that, just go to slcfire.gov, and I'm sure there's a link. I know it's long. I won't even remember it later, but I know you can find it on our website. But when you go there, we have a program for the younger kids where they can actually make like an escape plan and a safety plan for the family. And when they go and do this program with the help of mom and dad, you guys sign it off, and when you bring it to one of those open houses and you show it to one of the crew members, we'll have a treasure for them, some kind of prize that they can go home with. So just something fun to get them involved in thinking about safety around the home, and also to encourage mom and dad to jump on board with that as well. In addition to that, we also have coming up our Camp Athena and Camp Prometheus. What this is a program for youth ages 16 to 20. Camp Athena is for the girls, Camp Prometheus is for the boys. The girl one is September 14th, and the boys will be September 21st. And what this is an all-day fire experience at our training tower, where they'll get to run fire scenarios, work with our Jaws of Life, our extrication equipment. Basically, it's the day in the life of a firefighter, and something that they can be a part of. And our hope is that it exposes them to a great career and a great opportunity, and it's something that they'll want to pursue, or at least look into later, and just have a better understanding of what your public safety does for you. So again, go to that website, the easier one, slcgov.com, and you can find some information on that if you have kids in that age range. So That's really the only message that we have for you this month. I can answer a few questions for you if you have any questions. You guys are good, you're easy. Okay, I'm going to step back and let the police take over. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brody. Sorry, I'm making an introduction. Sorry, I'm slacking off. Most everyone has been to a meeting before. Detective King shows up every month to give us a report on safety and answer any questions and share a few messages similar to the fire department. So thank you, and his information is on the agenda too if you ever want to follow up with him about anything. So thank you, Detective King.
So she said, I'm Dave King with the Salt Lake Police Department, and just to let you know, like again, looking at the overall crime, how things are going, we're on a downward trend as far as like with our numbers and everything goes, which is great. We're showing property crimes and a lot of that stuff is on a downward trend. If you guys ever want to know where we're at, you can get onto the slcpd.com and there's a spot that says open data. You can go down to CommStat and it shows all those numbers. It's nice because recently I have, like our analysts, they sometimes will send out things saying, hey, we're seeing a trend here with this theft or this, and I haven't seen anything recently in this area. Excuse me. So that is something that's really nice that's is going our way for this area. Some things I wanted to talk about. I think it was Sarah was talking to me and asking me, wanting me to talk about the Ring doorbells. There is a new program that is out there that you as a community, it's kind of like Nextdoor where you can get on and you can talk and chat and do all that kind of stuff, but it also gives you the capability of sharing that information with us. So if we have incidents that are going on, then you guys can actually share that with us, or I think we can get on there and we can send out a request saying, hey, we need something, so you guys can review that. So it is a benefit to us. One of the questions I think Sarah had asked is, as far as filing police reports, if you guys have something but you have the doorbell camera, I would still recommend calling the police, getting a case number, filing that report, and letting us know that you have that Ring doorbell or the camera you're willing to share with us. So that stuff still need to get reported. We don't have someone that's just sitting around watching cameras. But it is another great benefit with our technology, different things that we can use just to help try to curb some of the problems. And the doorbell cameras are getting better and better. And I think that there's the Ring doorbell, but I think there's a couple different other brands that I think that I've been told that you can still access that program. Even though you're not with Ring, you can still access and kind of share some of that. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so the Ring has an app called Neighbors.
Okay.
And there was a message posted a few weeks ago saying that the Salt Lake City Police are now viewing what people are posting.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So it is an option just to help. Like I said, a lot of it comes from you guys helping us out and with you having those cameras and being able to share that with us. Some of the other concerns I've heard and I wanted to address is a lot of the problems that are going on at Liberty Park with like the transients and a lot of the other stuff that you see. It's something that is going on citywide. Something I think is does have an effect on us that is kind of like whenever we do anything, any kind of like policy enforcement or whatever, it kind of follows like trends around the nation. And just you guys know some of the things that are going on that I think is affecting us. Back in 2015, Boise had an incident where they issued a citation to a lady for camping in the park. They had a similar camping ordinance like us. They filed they issued a citation for the camping in the park. She fought it to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit found in her favor and said that police violated her Eighth Amendment right, which is cruel and unusual punishment. They basically said that because she had no legal place to sleep, she had every reason to sleep in the park. So that is something that I think is having an effect because we are seeing some of that defense coming here. You can't have a tent, a tarp, you can't create anything that creates kind of a structure to meet the elements of that camping issue. And so now it's to the point to try not to have the issue with being accused of violating the 8th Amendment, that we need to call the shelter and the rescue mission, and there's I think one other place, just to verify if there is beds available or not. If there are no beds available, that's the only time we've been instructed not to issue a no camping or a camping citation. If there are beds available and they meet all of the elements, then we're allowed to do that. Now, part of that too is you get stuff with like Liberty Park. Liberty Park has hours from like 5 a.m. to 11. So everyone's allowed to be in there even with all of their stuff and everything, and it can create a problem. And then we got to get into where we try to be reasonable, because it's like if we single out one group and then we have to go to others. So sometimes you'll see families with like the little tents, the netting, and the kids, and so it's trying to play that balance of being fair and partial to everybody. So we got to weigh that, but it is something that is a concern, and there has been some internal discussions throughout the department as far as how to handle some of these issues to try to help with some of the problems. You as residents being in the park, if you have situations, you're more than welcome to give us a call. Like I had one, I think last summer, where I just happened to be just doing like a little property check driving through, where somebody called in. They said that there was a male they were concerned about. He was in the middle of the park, had stuff strewn all over the place. He was yelling and screaming, throwing stuff everywhere. And they wanted us to go just talk to him, do a welfare check, which is completely reasonable. That's something that you guys feel free to do. So I was here, so I stopped and I went up and talked to him. And it turned out that he got some bad news, that he was hoping there was something with a court case that didn't go his way, that he just got notified. So he was completely upset, which is reasonable. He didn't like the way that it was going, but he was having his little issue. So we talked for a couple minutes and then we left, just reminded him, just clean up your stuff before you leave. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. But it's definitely, if you guys feel there's someone we need to talk to, feel free to give us a call, because sometimes a lot of people, they're here and we might be able to give them some kind of information, some kind of resources. We can connect them with the Community Connection Center over by the shelter and let them know that there's programs available to help them out, because we do get a lot of people that will come through and they're brand new, they don't know where to go. So we can get out there and say, hey, look, this is where you need to go. A lot of people have been contacted and they know that it's there, but even still, just us going and continue telling them, hey, there's programs, resources, let me get you in contact with somebody and we can give them that information. Yeah?
Liberty Park has quite an issue with the chronically homeless that are camping there. And they're camping there day after day after day.
Yeah.
Those that are living in their vehicles move their vehicles someplace else at night and then come back first thing in the morning.
And that's become a big trend.
But the issue that is happening with this now is that they're now setting up kitchens. So that these folks that are homeless most generally don't want to go, or these particular folks that are homeless most generally do not want to go into the programs. But it's becoming quite an issue with them messing around with Joe Public. I don't know that Joe Public is as safe as they should be in our public parks. And that's a real issue in running that farmer's market. It's a real concern. I am calling the non-emergency almost every week.
And yeah, I mean, I completely, I understand what you're saying. I got forwarded some pictures from some park personnel about different concerns that they're seeing as far as some of the needles and the trash and different stuff. And so that is something we are aware of. And like I said, we're talking internally, trying to figure out our next strategy, our next game plan to try to help.
If we could get some sort of police, now I know that Pioneer Park has Salt Lake Commerce behind them, so they can hire police department or some police officers off duty to walk the park. We do not have that ability because we're just a small little network. So wondering if we can't have, and I keep calling to see if we can't have people that are the police just kind of make a pass through. And it'd be really nice if they actually got out of their cruisers and took a walk up and down. It kind of just lets people know that they're about, And it certainly will help save on maybe some of those calls and some of the things that we have to deal with. I mean, mostly it's just, 3 women that are trying to deal with all of this, and that's a little difficult at times, and scary.
One of the things that I'm hoping that can kind of help out with that, like I think I've talked about it before, but you do have an East Side Bike Squad that they do hit all of the parks, so they don't necessarily hit here, but the sergeant that's over that is probably like he's probably like one of the most ambitious sergeants I think we have. Really, really great guy that runs that program, and so I know that him and his guys, they do make their rounds through here. So we do have that aspect. But one of the things that I think is great that the city's been doing, 3.5 years ago, when I was in patrol, before I came to my assignment, we had dwindled our numbers down to about 90 officers for just the patrol, and that was between days, afternoons, and graves. Well, now we're up to about 180 officers between days, afternoons, and graves, and so we've done. The city has helped us out a lot to bring up those numbers, and so some of that stuff I think is in the works of trying to get people to get on and just go out and do the foot patrols again. I know that they've been talking. There's a program they've talked about getting like the park ranger to kind of come and help with that. Yeah.
There was a study that came out earlier this summer. They studied 300 cities and found that Salt Lake City was second to last for property crime rates. And just last week I saw a couple people with 3 connected carriers just stacked with Amazon boxes crossing 21st South, just egregiously.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a plan on how to address that specifically? Because I know that our neighborhood feels that property crime really regularly.
So, as far as, are you talking about specifically like stealing packages and stuff, or?
I don't know exactly what that encompasses. I'm assuming it's like car break-in theft, package theft, just like any kind of like petty theft, I guess, that you could think about. Bike thefts, or, that's what I think about when I think about what you see most in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and so package thefts and a lot of that stuff, it is something that is constantly something we're looking at, specifically more around like some of like the holidays when people are ordering stuff. I do know that I was talking with the sergeant over property crimes, and there's a specific vehicle that they're looking at, they're targeting. So stuff like the Ring doorbells are a great asset for us to try to help catch some of that stuff. But I know that that property crime sergeant, that he goes out with his guys, and they try to really focus in on the people that they can prove as far as committing those thefts. And so it's continually work in progress. It is something that we are aware of, and we keep watching about, or keep looking at, trying to figure out what to do to help curb that. And I know with my school, especially during around the holidays, that's something we really try to do, is get out and drive around, follow FedEx trucks, and sit and watch packages and see what we can see. But it's a big process.
Okay. We're kind of running out of time to keep time for everybody else. We'll take just one more quick question. If you feel like it's very urgent, I'm going to take Zach's question because he set up all these chairs. But I encourage you to technically stay till the end of the meeting, and encourage you afterwards, to be respectful of everyone's time, afterwards talk to Detective King or follow up with him with his contact information.
No,
so we're going to close.
I just want to give the police department a compliment, not a racing issue, but we had a motor vehicle move into the church parking lot and refused to get out. The police came 5 times. And the very last time they said, "We are not going to leave until you're out of here," and they didn't. They stayed there, and then they even stayed a couple of minutes later after to go through the building with me to be sure, because it looked like somebody had gotten in there. Anyway, so a compliment. They did a great job.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Zach's
Just a couple things I'd like.
Zach's the last question, and we're moving on to the next agenda.
Another question.
What's that?
Another question. I was just going to do a shout out.
Okay, well, all those things take time. So Zach.
Just a couple things. One thing, from my understanding, the bike squad is off on Fridays, which is a really important day for Liberty Park and the events and our farmers market. So if you could look into that and maybe push them a little bit to have a rotating schedule or something where they could be around.
I've seen them go through once.
Yeah, and that's the deal, is that they're not there when we need them.
Right, exactly.
The other thing is, I was the one that made that call last year. And this is not an expose on you or anything. about the fellow throwing bottles on the ground in the midst of as many people as we have here,
Okay.
and it shattering everywhere, pushing his shopping cart over. From our perspective, it was way different from your conversation with him. He gave you the BS. He was incredibly violent, and it took you guys 45 minutes to get there, and that's just unacceptable. We called, and it took about 20 minutes to get him out of the area, and then I stood and watched you guys, and I finally saw the cars go down, and that could have exacerbated. Had he thrown the bottle down and it cut some child's leg or someone, I'm telling you right now, as a parent, I would have taken the law into my own hands, and that could be a big problem.
Okay.
So we need, and that's happening this summer. We've seen it many times. People swinging sticks around, aggressive. Not the people chilling by the trees. That's cool, whatever. But aggressive, like coming into our faces and our personal space, and it really is getting to like a boiling point where it could explode. And so I'm giving you a heads up to maybe go back to the department and figure out ways to be at the park more at peak hours, which my definition would be weekends and evenings. That's when it's the most occupied. That would be nice.
Yeah, we hold an event to have the public come in and have the public come in and have to be approached with this kind of stuff.
And I think the market aside, I think right, what we're feeling across the entire city, I appreciate Detective King explaining some of the things that they're doing, but I said to him, I think we're all feeling a certain degree of nervousness in our community that we took for granted for a long time as being very safe. So that's beyond Detective King, though, and if it's something we need to discuss further as a community here, I'm glad to reach out to the community council and do what we can. But I think that is something we're all feeling. But I'm going to move us on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Detective King. Go ahead.
So yeah, you got my information's on the paper. Feel free to call or email me. And George, when you've got a minute, I got an answer for your email.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Detective King. Next up on our agenda item is I raised to Sarah a little while ago about.
Excuse me. I was just going to do a shout out.
I want to keep moving through the agenda. If you have praise, you're welcome to talk to that person.
We have materials left over that we want everybody to know about. They're here on this table. They're from Night Out Against Crime, and I was going to shout out to the police chief, Tim, Ann, and Jen Fusilic for coming and participating. That was
Great.
a shout out. But come here and grab materials.
Okay, so moving on. So I was saying to Sarah that we're going to have a lot of development happening in our neighborhoods. I thought, one of the community council, as Bill always reminds us, Bill Davis, our vice chair, always reminds us, is we're not really in a situation of power, but we try to communicate, we try to bring resources, we try to make connections, we try to influence in the small ways that we can. Primarily, our job is sometimes just sharing information. So I was like, well, can someone from the city come and share some of what we can, as citizens, have a role in development in our community? And so we asked Joel Joel is willing to share some information with us about how that process works. And we appreciate him for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Joel Patterson. I work with the Salt Lake City Planning Office. I'm the zoning administrator. And we all see it. Salt Lake City's growing like crazy. There's a housing boom, housing being built all over, all kinds of work. Our office is seeing record numbers of petitions come through. So we realize that there's a lot of impact out there, and it's impacting a lot of people's lives. So in Liberty Wells, I was asked to talk a little bit about, just kind of give some overview about zoning and talk about when we require notice to property owners or community council to allow people to get involved in processes. I'm in the planning office. Most of the things that we look at and review are projects that have to go through some kind of public process. It's a conditional use that might require a public hearing, or a special exception where we send out notices to abutting property owners to let them know that somebody is proposing or requesting for some kind of modifications to our standards. So I can get into that. Generally, Salt Lake City, we have a bunch of different zoning districts. The great majority of Liberty Wells is zoned for low density residential. Most of the zoning is what we call R1 5000, which which is a single-family residential district. If you're creating new lots, those lots would have to be a minimum of 5,000 square feet in size. Certainly there's other types of zoning. There's other residential zoning that allows for some greater density. There's some multifamily zoning, some special zoning that we call SR3, which is kind of designed for small inner courts, kind of in the interior of our big 10-acre blocks on some of these small little streets. Certainly there's commercial zoning, mostly kind of around the edges. So along State Street, there's the corridor commercial zoning district. Along 21st South, there's CB, which is a community business district, which is more of a moderate density commercial area. There's some CN zoning, which is neighborhood commercial, which is kind of one of our smaller, least impacted commercial areas. You'll find little pockets of that along 9th South and on 17th South. And then a spattering of other zones like public lands for property that's owned by Salt Lake City, or institutional districts like Salt Lake Community College, or in some cases churches or other issues or other uses. So with each of our zoning districts, we have a list of uses that are allowed as permitted uses in that district or conditional uses. A permitted use, sometimes people call it by right. It's a type of use that's allowed in that particular zoning district, as long as they meet all of the base zoning standards like setback, building height, parking, things like that. So if they meet all of those standards, permitted uses don't have to come through my office at all. They can just submit for building permits. There's a zoning review that's done. They do building code reviews, fire code reviews, things like that. If they meet all the standards, they get a building permit, and the person can start doing their development. On permitted uses, there's no requirement in the city code that would require notification of the abutting property owner, anybody else in the neighborhood. So if you wanted to build a garage in your backyard, you met all of our zoning standards for its location and its size, you wouldn't have to notify your neighbors. The city wouldn't have to send out a notification to your neighbors before you could get that building permit. And most of our notice requirements are, we have them in our zoning ordinance, other parts of the city code, but they're generally following provisions in state law, in the state code. If something's a conditional use, that's a use that's generally going to be allowed in that district, but it might come with some reasonable anticipation that there's going to be some impacts created by that use. We have to hold a public hearing, and we send out notification to property owners within 300 feet, and property owners, tenants, community councils within that area. There are a whole host of other specialty kind of approvals that come through our office. If there's a thing called plan development, so if you're doing some kind of a project, it might be a permitted use, it might be a conditional use, but the developer is asking for modification of certain standards, like maybe setbacks or some water bulk types of standards. They can make a request to go through the planning commission public hearing process, and the planning commission may consider modifying some of those standards. Again, that would require a public hearing, 12-day notice. There are other things that are kind of less impactful, things that we call like a special exception. Maybe you want to do an addition to your house, but your house already doesn't meet, say, the side yard setback, so it's what we would call a non-complying building. You can actually go through a special exception process if you want to do an addition to the back of your house that would allow you to continue that wall along the side property line that doesn't meet the setback requirement. In a situation like that, we send out what we call a notice of application to abutting property owners, give people 10 days to provide comments, and then we can make a decision and forward it on to our planning commission. In certain cases, the city code requires us to engage the public early on when we first get an application. So things like conditional uses, plan developments, zoning map amendments, where you're changing the zoning district from one district to another district, or changing the, proposing to change or modify the master plan for a particular area. Alley vacations, a whole host of different types of things. As soon as we get that application, we have to provide notification to the registered organizations, so like community councils, like this group. So we provide that notice early on once we get the application. And with that, it provides, our code requires that we give the community councils a 45 day period to provide comments on that project. And within that 45-day period, we can't hold a public hearing. So we're doing about another internal reviews during that time, but it gives people an opportunity to get involved in the process early on. And then when it's scheduled for a public hearing, we'll send out notice for that public hearing. So that notice is a 12-day notice prior to that hearing. But community council, surrounding property owners within 300 feet, tenants, all get notified early on in the process so they can provide comments and hopefully make some meaningful change to projects.
Joel, can I interject with it? I know that's a helpful overview. Sometimes I find it really helpful to have an example, and I know that that we have a gentleman here that's willing to speak about developing the lofts. But I think sometimes it's an interesting example if you could talk about the lofts that are going up on 2100 and 400 East. That was an interesting example because we had, I think I understood it and remember it as commercial space and then single family dwellings that's being converted to multi-use, right? Or multi-unit.
Well,
and I know that's said and done, that ship has sailed, but
no, that's fine.
But I thought that would be an interesting example because it has mixed. It seemed like it was zoned for mixed things, and just to illustrate some of the things you're saying.
Yeah. So the project that she's mentioning is 421 Lofts. It's on 2100 South, the north side of 2100 South, starting in 4th East and going several parcels to the east of there. It also, the entire project also includes property along Redondo. So the parcels that front along the north side of 21st South are zoned CB, which is a commercial business district. That's a district that allows for housing. You can just do a straight housing project. You can do multifamily in that district. Or you could do a commercial project. It could be a mixed use project. So you could have a building that, say on the ground floor, has some commercial uses and the second floor above that would have residential uses.
Isn't that already in our Central City Master Plan for the Central Community Master Plan so that we can go and look that up online? For zoning?
Yeah, the zoning's online. You can look at projects online. I'll get into that a little bit later, how you can look those up. The master plan for the central community includes your community council. Goes all the way down to 21st South. It calls for commercial uses along that stretch of 2100 South. So we've got various levels of regulation here. But with that project, the first phase of that is some multifamily development along 21st South. And my understanding is the second phase of that would be the property that fronts onto the south side of Redondo, which is zoned R1 5000, which is a single family residential zoning district. My understanding is they're going to do single family. They're not proposing to change the zoning there to allow some different type of use that wouldn't be allowed there today.
Would that include not going any higher than 2 stories?
In the CB zone, the commercial zone that fronts on the 21st South, the maximum height limit is 30 feet.
What is that?
So you potentially could get 3 floors.
Okay, what about the Redondo side?
Redondo, it's R1 5000, and the maximum height in that district is 28 feet. And that'd be measured, if you had a pitched roof, it'd be measured to the bridge of the roof.
So it would be
The
2 stories?
well, It could be 2.5 stories.
Okay.
You know, if you had a 2-story house and with a pitched roof, and there was living space within that roof, potentially you could do that in
It's
28
just
feet.
what the people are looking down onto, on the folks that live on Redondo, and, the shadow that building is going to put onto those folks that are living on Redondo.
Yeah.
Therefore, they can't, you
Well,
know,
the-
either grow out or grow their vegetables or do whatever they're doing. But the biggest thing is, they got somebody watching everything they do. If they're higher than 2 stories, if we can keep it at 2 stories on the Redondo side, would be awesome.
Well, the building height isn't necessarily dependent on how many stories are there. It's the absolute building height. So 30 feet in the CB zone is 2 feet higher than what you could do on Redondo just with a single family home.
Isn't it 7 feet for a floor? You have to have 7 feet on.
Okay, I think somebody, Caitlin, I think I wanna make sure everyone gets a time
Do you want me
to
to
talk.
answer some of these questions? I'm representing the developer.
Yeah,
It'd be easy for me to answer these
Yeah,
questions.
no, and I did not
I'm
want
also a
to,
builder.
I did not wanna turn it into, I wanted to just use it as an example
I
of
know,
illustrate. So
yeah.
the point was, is that the so if they wanted to, for theoretical purposes, if the residential area, they wanted that to be higher than 28 feet, they would have to rezone it, they'd have to go through a process, and eventually they would have to come for public input. I was just trying to use it to illustrate.
Yes, and so with the proposed
We can get
project, it's
into
being
details
done
of
as
that.
a permitted use under the existing zoning. No requirement for public hearings. With permitted use, you meet all the base zoning standards. You can proceed just to get a building permit with no notification that it's required. On this project, they did go through a process with our office to what we call a lot consolidation. So there was a number of properties that fronted on 21st South that they combined through a process with the city into a single parcel.
And I'm sorry, and isn't there a process, there's a process when a house gets demoed, right? There's also a process that ensues for that, right?
So if somebody's proposing to demolish a house, they have to go, with our building permit office, go through what we call a pre-demolition process, which is kind of the screening process to make sure that all the different organizations that will be involved in that process are notified and can do whatever inspections they might need to do. My office makes sure that they're meeting all the zoning processes, and there's no things to look at, like, is it in a local historic district, which is not, or if there's other processes that in some of our districts, if you're going through if you're building a new project, you have to go through a public process. None of that comes into play here. But through the pre-demolition process, a lot of city departments look at it, but also the people in air quality issues and asbestos issues have to be involved in that. And generally, the city won't issue that building or that permit to demolish a structure until they've also submitted for a building permit for replacement use, and that permit is issued.
So we're
this
kind of going
project-
around to time. We're going
Yeah,
to try
so this project is meeting all the base zoning standards. It's going through a permitted use process. There's no requirement for notice for a project like that. You know, that might be difficult for people to grasp when they see a pretty large area that's going to have a significant project built there, thinking, whoa, there's no requirement for notice. It meets all of our base standards, so they're able to do that just by getting building permits. And Ben, I apologize for trying to describe your project.
So Ben is here about the 421 lots. Is any of the other general questions that Joel could answer right now? And we'll, if not, we'll switch it over.
And
I do have one. Will you be hosting in the near future another citizen planner certification? I went through that years ago and it was wonderful.
yeah, the Utah APA, or American Planning Association group, often puts those on. I don't know if they have any of those planned. I don't remember seeing anything on that for some time, but we do have our summer planning program where we go out and do kind of field trips in different areas. We've done a few this year that have been well attended. And just another thing, if you go to the Salt Lake City Planning webpage, so www.slcgov.com/planning, there's a link on there. You can click on a map of plan development or conditional use, you can zoom in on this map and we've got dots there and you can get some information about what those projects are. There's a link on the city website to that we call Citizens Access Portal, where you can get on and get information about any planning project. You can get information about building permits if you have the address or the permit number. So you can always call our office or you can call the permits office and get information as well. Sure.
It's just a question of curiosity, but is there like a working relationship with neighboring cities with this sort of stuff? Do they generally have like the same zones? It just like all this kind of brings to mind that this is right against the border of South Salt Lake. And is it possible that we could expect like South Salt Lake just does something wild, throws up a 5-story building or something like that? Is there
zoning is
just good relationships on your parts? Is it?
As a city, we try to communicate with neighboring cities. Sometimes we do a better job than others. We do try to have a good relationship with South Salt Lake, so certainly has a long common border with the city, and Mill Creek City, we've been working on that with them on various issues. But each city has its own zoning standards. Unlike the building code, it's pretty standard across the country and even internationally. Zoning community by community can be radically different. And like in this case, in the north side, we've got commercial zoning. The south side in South Salt Lake City does as well. But you could have a situation where the zoning on either side of the street, because they're in different communities, are wildly different. I think as we look at changing zoning or changing master plans, try to coordinate if we're along a boundary like that, coordinate with the adjacent city or community to hopefully have some continuity, but it doesn't always happen.
Okay, I'm gonna let that be the last question. I want to make sure we have time for the people on the agenda, and of course, Joel's information is also available on the agenda, so if you want to follow with him. But go ahead and take your question, because that's the last question. Joel, do you mind stepping? We are recording this.
Oh, sorry.
And you were starting to fade and drifting away. So if there are a few people tuning in,
They're like to be the hidden guy off on the side.
My question is about the public input process. For instance, if I were the only person who objected to a setback issue, would that win the day, or do many neighbors have to protest something that a developer wants to do?
That's a really good question. All of our processes, if you're going through a conditional use process, our zoning ordinance has a series of standards that we have to review and make a recommendation to our planning commission based on those standards. The planning commission has to make its decision based on those standards. So if I go to a public hearing for a conditional use and there's 100 people in the audience and every one of them speaks out against that project just because they don't like it for whatever reason, the planning commission can't say, okay, since everybody here is against this, we're going to vote against it. The courts don't allow for that. But public input is always really important to us in our processes. When we have our early notification processes, like for conditional uses or other types of processes where once we get the application, then we send out a notification to property owners within 300 feet and community councils. It's to start the public input process early on. We take all those comments and look at them and pass them on to the applicant or to the developer and say, how are you going to respond to these things? These are real issues that people are raising, and often that can help shape a project as it moves along. But what's most important to us is if we hear comments from the public that relate to the standards and how this project may or may not, in your mind, meet the standards, those are the most important. Because that's what the planning commission can use to make their decision. On conditional uses, again, conditional uses are generally uses that are allowed, but they might have impacts that have some issues that are going to impact the neighborhood. the planning commission can place conditions on those uses to try to mitigate those impacts. So again, public involvement is key on that. But sometimes when I tell people that the commission has to make its decision based on those standards, people think, well, it doesn't matter what we say. Well, it does. It's very important for us what people think about a project, how you think that project may impact your neighborhood or your property. It's very important.
Okay, thank you, Joel. His information is, if you want to follow up with him. So Ben's going to step up here. Ben is a developer at the 421 Lofts. I appreciate him being here. I think he has intentions of other projects in the neighborhood. So my understanding is that those lofts are in motion. But I appreciate you being here. And this is also where I'm going to encourage you to really exercise those ground rules.
Let me just say, my name is Ben Lowe, but I am not a developer on this project. I
Okay,
represent
sorry.
the developer, David Trom. But I am a developer in my own right, and I've done it before, so I'm very familiar with the process. I know Joel for I don't know how many years.
Long time.
20, maybe 20 years. Interesting site. Difficult, had lots of problems on it already. High water table. We've got, I think, 28 lots going in, 2-car garage, and they're going to be for sale. So the selling price is probably going to be around $450,000 up to $500,000. So we're trying to improve the neighborhood, which, as you all probably know, we've had a lot of problems with everybody. I don't mean you guys, I mean transients. I had some today. I had to have a van towed today. In the buildings, we're tossing them out on a daily basis. Drugs in that whole Redondo area. We have video cams on it. We have people around the clock there now. We found oil tanks on the site today, or last couple of weeks ago. We had to have them removed. They're all done legally with the state. They were watching them. Fire department was there today. We're having an interesting time. But
Welcome to the neighborhood.
yeah.
Hey, can you give us an overview? Some of us that aren't familiar with it, can you give us an overview of what's going on there?
They are, again, 28 townhomes, 2-car garages. Maximum height is 30 feet. We're not beyond that. So we have to be very careful because they will be checking. We can't go above. So floor to ceiling heights are basically 8 feet because you've got a joist of 12 inches. So you've got an 8-foot ceiling or a 9-foot ceiling, depending on, but you don't go, the whole building does not go above 30 feet. So that's how it works. You have each apartment, it's not apartment, each condo is about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. And 2 bedrooms, bathrooms, and everything. Really nicely done. We've done a lot of townhomes in the west side. We do a lot in West Valley City. And David, who's the owner, his specialty has been townhomes. So they're beautiful, to be honest with you. Beautiful kitchens, appliances, and everything. So we hope to increase the value of the neighborhood, not decrease the value.
Because the neighborhood is a historic neighborhood, and we do not have all of these tall buildings like they do have in Sugar House, we have been pretty bent on keeping the height issue when you start to run into our neighborhoods at a 2-story.
But I'm also, we have a design background and we have architects on staff. We're very conscious of not looking into somebody's garden, for example. I like to garden. I don't want somebody coming.
Yeah.
I used to live in Sugar House.
Okay.
So I don't want somebody, as I said, peering down on me. Neither do we.
Great.
We're very conscious of that. These views on these particular townhomes are oriented across the way, looking at St. Anne's, looking that way towards the south. It's actually a beautiful view looking at St. Anne's.
What's the plan for the Redondo site?
Right now it's single-family homes. I mean, we've been evicting the transients on a constant basis, and it's a mess. We have the police there again today. Every day we're on it.
Is it a total rebuild, like demolition?
We haven't decided yet.
rebuild?
We were actually looking at some of the conditions of the houses are actually nice. Like the one on the corner is very nice, and there's another brick house. We've actually made us redo them. We're not sure yet. But we're looking at the whole area to make sure it fits in.
Okay. Well, did you have a question over here?
Oh, I was just making I just like to tear down 414 if
That would be my.
Oh my gosh, I won't even go there. 414 is, yeah. Dave, did you notice that truck there today?
I did this morning.
We had it
yeah.
towed. Again, it's the same people, the drug dealers I tossed out of there 2 weeks ago came back. It's dangerous.
How many buildings is this?
It's 28.
28 individual
28,
buildings?
no. 4
28
buildings.
4 buildings.
And 28. Yeah.
28 total.
Yes.
28 total. Okay.
So, excuse me, so am I understanding you correctly that the Redondo side is going to be single family home?
Well, right now that's what it's done, so I'm not going to.
Awesome.
I mean, we haven't, we own it, but we haven't just, you know, that's what it's done. Yes,
Are you intending to request a conditional use permit for the
we haven't
residential?
decided anything on any
So
of
that
that
could
stuff.
happen.
It's,
Okay.
I mean, we may want to, we were looking at it today because some of the houses are actually in good shape, and they're pretty. We recognized it, David and I were talking about the garden across the street. We know Stan on the corner very well. He's a very nice man. It's a very quiet, local, nice neighborhood, and he recognizes that.
So just to follow up with that, so could you in essence build a second story possibly on those, like a single level?
If we decided to go and demolish those houses, we would have to go through, we would look at obviously the neighborhood, how something would fit into the neighborhood. It would have to be within that 28 feet. And we would be looking at that. But again, you've got to remember as a developer, we're looking at the cost. If, for example, I know the house across the street is renting out for $2,000. The little one across on 4 feet. That's how much he wants to rent. It's about 1,500 square feet. So it may be more worth it for me to not build a big house there and just keep the small houses, keep the scale, and renovate more and rent them out.
Well,
I don't know. I'm just saying, just in general. It's what we look at.
My question was similar to the house across the street where it was just a bungalow and they put a
Yeah.
second story on it.
Sometimes it's easier to do that, but in general, so I've done that in Sugar House, my older house I lived in on my piece. But sometimes because the status of the house, if it's in terrible shape, sometimes it's just easier just to start again.
Just the integrity.
Yeah. And 414 is what we want to start again.
You said there are 2-car garages for each
Yes,
con-
they're tandem.
townhome. Is there any additional parking on site? Any planned parking on
I don't
site?
think there is actually.
Okay. And any plan, I don't actually know if this is allowed, but is all of the parking on 4th East still going to be public parking?
I don't think we're changing the parking in 4 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Any other questions for Ben?
And I don't like taking down the big trees, but I had to.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Questions, anything?
Any other questions for Ben? No? Okay.
Is there a place where you can go where there's
Yeah, can we see the
plans posted?
plans?
Could we-
Yeah.
or the general, like,
We're actually,
website?
I'm in the process with David of developing a website for all his projects. David's just been doing townhomes and he does about 200 a year. And he doesn't even have a website. So it's in the process. Yes,
Oh, I forgot to ask, are you doing any mixed use at all?
not in this one.
Okay.
In other projects, yes.
So, and what's the name of the owner?
David Tron, Tron Properties. And again, as Joel said, if you go to the citizen portal, punch in the address, all this information comes up. If you have to have a login, you put your own login there, everything comes up. They'll tell you the status of the job. It's not a problem.
What's your timeline?
I've got a little ongoing bet I'll have it done in a year. A year. But I had a, I mean, we didn't know there was a gas station there. It wasn't on our reports.
Oh,
No underground storage tank.
Those have been removed properly. We had all the state officials there, the fire department was there today. They're all gone. It's all done. The water table is at 4 feet.
yeah, you got those natural springs.
Natural springs. The public utilities, well, you don't know this, Joel. Their stormwater is leaking into the site. The 8-inch water main we have to put down 4 feet now. And we're going to run it all the way down so that everybody has better water down there. Well, to Redondo, I should say. We couldn't do it on 2100 because these are old pipes and they're too close together. So we dug millions of holes on 2100, abandoned that plan, gone to 4 feet. So I've had a few issues. Plus car accidents, plus 414. Yeah, it's fun. Yes, sir.
How long do you anticipate having Fourth East closed during the week?
Because we changed the plans very fast this last couple of weeks because we couldn't go into the 2100 to do the water main tap. We've now done it on going down Fourth East. It should be about no more than 10 days. And we'll probably have to seal coat it and clean it all up. But we'll have individual house access, obviously.
I have one more question, if I may.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back to the two-story thing. Right now, you're thinking about single-family homes.
Oh, yeah, it's
Right.
Zansford's all.
If you're, and you said this all depends upon the builder and what it is he decides to do. If he decides to go to 2 stories, then does that make it so that it has to come before the community council or go before anybody else?
I don't think so, because it would meet all the setbacks for a single-family home.
In the CB district, it's 30 feet, so you could have a flat roof building at 30 feet. On Redondo, they're limited to 28 feet. If it's a pitched roof, if it's a flat roof home, they'd be limited to 20 feet.
So this style in that area probably would not be a flat roof, it would probably yes.
I was just gonna say, as you get your plans available, I'm all for daylighting streams, so if you have identified a stream in that area, I'm all for daylighting our streams.
Right.
That's just my preference. I just think we need more daylighted streams in our community.
Okay.
Okay, well, there's no other questions for Ben. We'll move on to the other folks we
You've
have
seen
here.
them upside most days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sarah did have Erin slated, but maybe she's busy with some other things. So I think next on the agenda is Tim
Cosgrove.
I had it right. I just lost confidence. Cosgrove. Okay, thanks, Tim. Tim's here from the city. Tim, what is your title?
I'm the community liaison for Mayor Jackie Viskutsky, Mayor's office. Thank you. Nice to be here. I want to thank Joel Patterson too. It's always good to have his expertise with our department. I've worked with him several times, and every time I have a question, I know I can just go to him and he has the answer. So it's nice to have him, that we can share him with you all too. And I also wanted to give your crew a shout out here at Liberty Wells. I know it's been a busy, busy summer. I see Greg and Valerie out at the farmers market every Friday. It's incredible. It's huge. It's strong. The community loves it. They look forward to it. They talk about it. I know Zach's worked on the British Field Days, and Marilyn did the first encampment and had over 380 people turn out. You guys don't give yourselves enough credit and pat yourself on the back, but you do a phenomenal job for our community, so thank you. And Tamara, she did the night out against crime when we were out there too, just last week, so. Yes, sir.
What is the first encampment?
You don't know the first encampment?
Oh, you're gonna have to wait a year.
Okay, Marilyn. We'll talk to Marilyn afterwards.
You ever heard of Rock Park?
But I just had a few things to share. I know Brody, the firefighter, talked about school starting on Monday. Please slow down, watch out for kids while you're out there. The roads are shared space. We use them with pedestrians, not just with cars. In that, compliance with the city is hiring crossing guards. We have a huge crossing guard shortage. So if you want to apply for that, it's like $13 an hour. So not a lot of money, but you're helping out and you're serving in your community while you're getting paid to do it. So if you're interested in looking at that, you can check out the mayor's website and get a hold of David Tola. David Tola is the compliance director over Crossing Guards. This Friday, what's this Friday? If it wasn't busy enough already. Tour of Utah, yay. So it's real exciting. I put the handouts on the back table of where you can gain entry points. Tour of Utah is like the Tour de France. It's a big bicycle race that goes around the city, down South Temple, up 11th Avenue, down Virginia. But it's these guys and ladies going 50 miles an hour. They have no brakes on their bikes. If you've ever seen them ride, it's incredible. They travel 60 miles, so they go 8 times around the city in about 2 hours. Can you imagine? On a bicycle. So it's crazy. But I did want to bring that to your attention. There's still time for volunteers if you want to volunteer for that. You can just go to Tour of Utah, Stage 4. Our stage in Utah, Salt Lake is Stage 4, and sign up to volunteer. After that is the United Nations Conference the week after. So August 26th through the 28th, United Nations is coming to Salt Lake, first time in 70 years. They've been outside of New York. So if you're interested in volunteering for that, you can, the sign-up link is on the mayor's website. So click on there, you get all the information. They're asking for greeters. And that's one thing, we got 5,000 people coming from around the world, representing over 200 different countries. So be polite, be friendly. Show them what Utah good drivers could be.
They're always welcome here, right?
Yeah.
Again.
They're always we do a great job in welcoming people. Driving, so good. But just make them feel welcome and welcome them to Salt Lake City and being a part of our community and some of the great aspects that we have here in our local community. Any questions on that?
So just the greeters, or what other kind of roles for volunteers?
Oh, there's workshops that they still need help with. They're setting up for direction, giving locations for different venues. There's cultural events in the evening. I know workshops is a big portion of what they're asking for volunteers for.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit more, you said the United Nations. United Nations is a pretty big group. What,
So
I think they're talking about human rights or.
Yeah, this is a conference on a civil society and they've got a few big workshops on climate change, on inclusiveness, building a more inclusive society. It's really geared around World War II's. After World War II and 1948, when they came together and created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was to build a more peaceable society, a more peaceable world, so that we don't have another world war, but bringing countries together on like-minded issues, that these are the challenges that we all face, no matter what country you're in, but that we can work to resolve them together. So that's kind of the big picture.
What a wonderful dream.
Yeah, they do a lot of good work around the world.
Making a reality of it.
Tour of Utah, I put the maps back there, and then something real exciting, the mayor's worked on this for 2 years.
This is the highlight of the meeting, really.
Yeah.
You should pick these up.
The master transit plan and our high frequency routes have come to fruition. They started this week. Every 15 minutes, right here.
Sorry,
From-
21. We're running 15 every 15 minutes.
Yeah, on 2100 South, on 9 South, and 2nd South, we've connected the east-west corridor. So now you can go from University of Utah, East High School, all the way out to Poplar Grove. You know, it's quite a feat. In 15, the bus lines run every 15 minutes. And then on Sunday, every half an hour, so every 30 minutes from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Monday, it starts at 6 a.m. till 12 midnight. So there's a lot of businesses along the route you can check out and see what's available. And we're just real excited that this is finally.
So what made the Frequent Transit Network possible, Tim?
It was the Funding Our Future, the sales tax that we were able to acquire from the support of our constituents and the direction of the mayor's office and the support and the planning of our planning and master transit plan, and just the open dialogue and the communication and prioritizing what you as our citizens have requested for years.
Hey Tim, I've seen a number of streets in the neighborhood that are getting chip sealed and some new sidewalks going in. Can you tell us how that came about as well?
So that part is part of our maintenance fund from Funding Our Future, although I don't think that's from this year. I think that's from funding from a prior fund that we had before. The funding that we get for Funding Our Future starts for this next fiscal year. We also passed the general obligation bond last November, so we have $87 million additional dollars, and we've worked well with our public utilities to mirror those projects around the city so that we can complement our curb, our gutters, our sewers, our water lines at the same time we're rebuilding those roads. And that money is just for new or rebuilds, not for maintenance. And the last thing I had to share, we had some conversation, I think Zach might have brought it to our attention last time, between making the right call and the difference between when you call 911 and when you don't. So non-emergency, when you call 911 to stop a crime, to report a fire, or to save a life. Those are the 3 times you call 911. Now, I know firefighter Brody had talked about, and maybe Detective King alluded to, if you call 911 or your kid calls 911 and it's an accident, you hang up. No, you still have to let them know. Hey, that was an accident. They still have to report that call. They still have to send out somebody to investigate, because you never know. So, and if you have reports that you can file online, that information is on the back as well. For reporting, like a non-emergency, my bike was stolen, it's gone, can't find it, how do I report it? You can report that online. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Tamara?
I just was going to ask, I think it was Erin that mentioned that there was going to be some funding for facade repair.
For what repair?
Like facade repair on houses or something like that, street?
Well, there's a grant that's available you can apply for through Housing and Neighborhood Development for businesses in certain areas for improvement, like a facade improvement. But we did have Liberty Wells applied for the micro grant, right?
Yeah, that's different. I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
But I'm just talking about the other pots of money that are available for local community councils that you're eligible for. And don't forget ACE funding. You can apply for that September 1st again. Yes.
Does the mayor have any priorities to accomplish before she leaves office? Is there anything in the pipeline between now and then?
There's a list of things she's been working our tail ends off. We're still hopeful with the Homeless Resource Center's opening. That was a big project that was kind of kicked down the road for years, so to speak, before we came in. There's still a lot of challenges with the men's shelter in South Salt Lake. The women's shelter, Homeless Resource Center, Geraldine King, opened Tuesday. So it is online. They took in 25 clients on Tuesday and plan on taking 25 each additional day. And they're assigned a caseworker. There's an intake process when they come in, and they're assigned a caseworker. And I went to the service coordination meeting, and it was incredible. It was 125 individuals representing all these different services and agencies and organizations that step forward that are ready to help out. It was phenomenal. I mean, it was heart pounding, you know, just to see all these people ready, willing, ready to help out and do whatever they can do to get resources and clients connected.
Were there some Draper citizens there?
Draper?
Helping out?
Yeah.
What do you think?
But yeah, it was empowering, very empowering to see people coming out and getting individuals connected that have lost their way or haven't had that opportunity before. So we're hopeful. It's not going to save all or solve all, but it's a beginning. And then the co-ed shelter on 15th South, Paramount Avenue and 275 West will open up this month. The end of this month. Any other questions?
Go ahead. I was just going to ask about RDA, if we've heard anything on any updates or the community commercial factor for State Street RDA.
No, they're getting ready to do some public engagement on 300 West with that reconstruction project, which some of it's RDA.
Just curious.
Yes, sir.
Seven Canyons?
No.
Nobody knows. Okay, the mayor's recommended and they approved a disinfectant system, so they're not going to grind down these sharp edges, but they're just going to disinfect the water. That was approved.
Big deal.
Well, I thank you for the update.
So is there another question in the back?
Tracy Aviary next Wednesday is offering admission for senior citizens at $1. AARP says you're at 55, you're a senior. Anyway, if you're gonna go, get there before 10:30 because there's a bird show, you don't wanna miss it. Or 11:30, but you have to be there when it starts or they won't let you.
So a little plug for the lovely place that's hosting our meetings every single month. So
Yes, keep that in mind.
Any other questions for Tim?
The press release,
Which one?
the Salt Lake City files amended complaint and lawsuit against UL Inland Port Authority. Or is this all that we need to know?
Yeah, the mayor had filed an amended version of the lawsuit against Inland Port to stop the inland port. That's in the hands of the lawyers now, in the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Tim. Tim
Thank
brought
you.
some helpful information. Tamara brought tons of helpful information too, so take some time to peruse the back. There's lots of options back there.
There's only one doggy doo-doo bit
Okay.
to left, so I don't know if somebody's desperate for one of these.
So we have a time. We actually have time for open agenda. I think it's just like sheer miraculousness. So we have one person that wanted to speak, and then we'll, after that person that we know is already on the queue, we'll open it up to a few other things. Mind stepping up and so I'm not going to get it right. So you'll say.
Good day to all of you guys. My name is Kalaya Talanga. I am the lay leader for the United Methodist Church, the Call Centenary, on 1740 South 500 East. I am here to engage you guys because we do respect and care for the community opinion. Our membership is declining, so the conference wants us to make up our mind by December this year. If we go below 50, here is the project they are really proposing. It's for us to close Centenary and we merge with the First Church on 2nd South, 2nd East. But then what are we going to do with the building? They are proposing that we can tear down the church and build townhomes here or condos. But one of the wishes of the old ladies, she was thinking of using the building for a community center. There is needs, there is needs for remodeling and lots of things, to improve before making it a community center. So go sleep off with that idea. She's so nice to give me this chance because it was just at the very last minute that I've been emailing Bill. So, but we are a neighborhood and we want you guys to be nice to us, just kidding. We love each other. We want to be in this community. We have lived here forever. I have been in my place for 40 years. So I don't want to go anywhere. I want to go to church there until I die. I'm only 66 years old. But if there is another floor on top of the sanctuary, there is nothing. But I guess it used to be activities, volleyball for youth. We don't have any more youth. So you guys think about that. She's going to give me a chance for next month's meeting so we can talk about it and I'll hear, because we want you guys to engage and give me your opinion so I can let the conference know.
So, excuse me, when you talk about 50, are you talking 50
members?
So just a preface to give them, that's the building. It's right next to First Encampment, so it's a big, gigantic brick building. And they're feeling a little bit of pressure to make a decision about what to do. There's a little bit of commercial interest. I think what we're gonna give a little more time for discussion in this. We're gonna aim to. I'm sure there's lots of things on wanting to get on the agenda, but we're gonna aim to give it a little more time at our September meeting. But think about it. Also think about. I think the call to action might be here is connections or resources that we could pass on to the church, or if you know somebody that might have particular interest in having it be a mixed use or community space, putting in those connections. And we can share their contact info in our next newsletter that will do follow up to this meeting.
Just to clarify on that, are they looking to sell the land or keep it?
We have done our homework. Well, the pastor did, not me. She has talked to a lot of people. They said we are already qualified to change the zoning in order to do townhomes or condos. But remember, we are dealing with elderlies that have been there. They were baptized there. They got married there. It is a place for themselves until they die. But I am, don't tell my pastor, I am hoping, to have that as a community center. We can still worship, but then mixed use, for the community, around us. So kind of give it a good thought. And then when I come next month, because I have to report on this by December. So your opinion means a lot. So I want you guys to really engage on this, because if we do the townhomes or condos, most of the people that I've talked to, they hate that idea. So if you have a rich friend that wants to do and change something in that church and keep it on,
well, right. It's also like historic, right? It's an old building. I think we're feeling that. I personally feel the desire to want to keep the precious old things that have been in Salt Lake for a really long time. It's fine. New things come up. That's fine. Some things have to come down. That's fine. But we can keep beautiful buildings like that and also serve the community. That would be. But that is a complicated question. But I think everyone will do their homework of sitting and thinking about that a bit more, and we'll open it up to a couple other open agenda items.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have things they want to share with the community? Yeah, you want to step up here?
Well, I don't have to go up there, but I just have one announcement. My name is Nicole Valliere. I live across the street. You might know my house because I run the little free pantry out of my front yard. For those of you who have seen it, that's not what I'm here about. I also work for the University School of Dentistry, and I just wanted to announce that we are moving into the Liberty School Community Health Center there. We're going to be running their dental clinic starting in mid-September. So we'll be offering low-cost dental care for the community, for the kids in the schools, and then also for adults. So if you're interested, stop on by. We'll be having an open house in a few weeks, and we would love to get the community involved in getting some patients there.
Yeah, if you want to pass your info on to us, we're glad to push that out to our channels as well. Any other things that people want to share with the community during the open agenda time? Yes, Marilyn.
Well, I have a halfway house from the prison open right next door to me, and I would like to get some official input maybe the next meeting about what to expect from that. And I understand it's not legally set up to be that, but it's there with 8 friends living right next door to me. And so I wondered if we could consider that.
Sure. We can talk afterwards and see if we can gather some information. Maybe they can come and talk.
Okay.
Will you reiterate that statement?
What's that?
Will you reiterate?
So Marilyn brought up that there's a halfway home that's opening up next adjacent to her.
Open. Yeah.
It's open, and she wanted to add some clarifying questions about if that was meeting all the requirements. It sounds like. Any other things?
I was just gonna ask about the facade, the microgranite. I don't really know much about that.
Oh, well, that was, I think Tim conflated things for a moment there. So we did receive so the city started a grant program to community councils for the first time this past year. We did receive some of that money. We're using it towards the print newsletter that we've been trying to keep going to send out to the community, and the website that I'm on the hook to get done. So. That's referring to. I think it's going to be an annual. We're going to report back shortly about that money. I think it was 1,600.
That one is going to be available soon with the new fiscal year, so you can apply. This community council can apply for a gym. I didn't mean to confuse the two. I was just.
Oh, that's okay.
I was trying to share other monies that are available.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I made one more plug. Go out to the farmers market, volunteer, and reach out to your community council if there are things that you'd like to see on the agenda. You always can do info at slc.org. If you have things that you would like us to kind of share and bring up, we're really open to that.
Oh, we just have, the CERT training is the 29th of September, so we need more people to sign up for the CERT training, so please do.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time. We appreciate you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We can adjourn.
Adjourn.